Welcome back to Teen TV Deep Dive. Here on this channel, we talk about all things Teen TV. Happy New Year, everyone. I want us to kick things off with talking about everyone's winter obsession, and that's heated rivalry. Before I get into the nitty gritty, I wanted to preface that I don't have any knowledge about hockey whatsoever, so if I say the wrong words or my phrasing is just a little bit awkward when it comes to the terminology in hockey, I'm pretty new to all of this. Heated Rivalry is about two professional hockey players named Shane, who plays for a team on Montreal, and Ilya, who plays for Boston. They're both very famous and talented players. They're also the captains of their teams, but they're ultimate rivals. While the enemy part doesn't last very long, the two start things off as a long-term sneaky link, and that's basically what the show is all about. So today I wanted to talk about my thoughts and opinions that I formed on all of the characters and just the overall storyline in Heated Rivalry. I first wanted to talk about episodes 1 and 2. I was very shocked, to say the least, but also underwhelmed. And what I mean by this is it was very spicy. All of the scenes between Shane and Ilya were very steamy, but I think I wanted to see more depth to the storyline, see more of some struggles that Shane and Ilya may face as individuals, or even more about their rivalry on the ice. I felt like that also could have been very interesting. So, those first two episodes, for me personally, left a lot to be desired. Now, as for characters, I first wanted to talk about Shane. He's very shy. He's a rookie hockey player as well, and he seems very close to his parents. His mom is also his manager, so she's very involved with his work life. Shane also seems very awkward, but he's still sweet, very impressionable as well. And throughout the series, I was kind of wondering if he was neurodivergent, and seeing Shane's actor in real life, actually confirm that that's what they were going for and with the direction of his character. I really enjoyed seeing that because while it didn't consume Shane's whole character or personality throughout the show, they made sure that he exhibited behaviors that were consistent throughout the show. So I thought this was a very nice way to represent neurodivergent people in a tasteful way, in my personal opinion. Moving on to Ilya, he's not necessarily new to professional hockey, but he is new to this league. He used to play in Russia. That's originally where Ilya is from. But to describe Ilya, I would say he's very confident and forward, sarcastic, and flirty. Ilya is actually the one who initiated this whole will they, won't they thing with Shane. Over these time jumps that we see throughout these first two episodes, Shane and Ilya spend time keeping things a secret because, one, who goes public with their sneaky link? That's kind of crazy. And they also work in a very heteronormative space, and their work is just very public, their lives as well, where it isn't common for queer people to be openly out. So I definitely understand why they had to keep things on the hush hush for a while. Now, for episode 3, it's basically a mini movie, if you will, where we don't really see any development for Shane and Ilya's storyline, but we actually see two characters from the author's book series called Kip and Scott. And Scott is another professional hockey player. He's cool with Shane and he plays for a team in New York. And then Kip is a barista. Pretty simple, basic life. So Kip and Scott have this instant connection. They meet. Scott is out on a run in New York City and he stops at a coffee shop where Kip works. And it's basically love at first sight, and they move in together after the first hookup. While their relationship was super sweet, and I felt like it was very romantic and cute, they had their issues as well. We see that feels like he's hiding from his family. While he is out, he feels like he's telling a lie to his dad because he randomly moved out and he won't tell his dad the real reason why. And then he feels like with his friends, he can't really speak on his relationship or anything like that. And the few of Kip's few close friends that have been able to be privy to that information, they're constantly telling Kip that Scott isn't the move. If he doesn't feel like he's going to be able to come out, then what's the point of being with him? But Kip persists and he says, "That's my man. I'm going to stick beside him." And that leads to a lot of tension. Scott, again, for the similar reasons that I named with Shane and Ilya, he obviously doesn't feel comfortable being out. And so he feels like keeping this relationship a secret is the best possible thing that he can do for their relationship to have any longevity. And he feels like where they're at is pretty great and is the best that he can do for right now. With this episode centered all around them, it ends with this ultimatum basically of, will Scott eventually come out, or will Kip finally leave this relationship and move on? Now, episodes 4 and 5 are back focused on Shane and Ilya, and we see that a lot of time has passed and Shane and Ilya continuously meet up. We've jumped ahead for about 10 years, so that first episode to episode 4 is about a 10-year difference. In these episodes, we see that the feelings are slowly starting to reveal themselves. We see that Shane is slowly starting to wrap his head around his sexuality and actually come to acceptance with that. Prior to him trying to be in a relationship with a famous actress named Rose, while I did enjoy seeing them on the screen together, it was for alternative reasons. But now Shane has this understanding that his feelings for Ilya are okay, and he's starting to see a little bit more past just a physical connection with Ilya and starting to develop real romantic feelings. And we really see this start to take a turn when Shane and Ilya end up on the same team for an all-star game. While the media is pretty shocked and has some close eyes on them because they're rivals now playing for the same team, it's such a shock for the hockey world. But I think Shane and Ilya take this as an opportunity to kind of progress their relationship and shift the public eye's opinion of what their relationship should look like. So now they can go from being total rivals to maybe even amicable and pretty friendly with one another. And I think this is the perfect opportunity and also the turning point for them to go from a casual relationship to more of a committed one with romantic feelings and intention behind it. Before I continue, I wanted to talk a little bit more about Shane's relationship with Rose. Like I said, Shane was pretty confused and frustrated about all of these feelings he was having, especially towards Ilya. So he ends up meeting this girl named Rose. She's a famous actor, and they end up getting into the relationship. Pretty quickly into it, I think Shane figures out that girls just aren't for him in general, but he still continues to try and force this relationship to work with Rose because he likes her in a platonic way, like really likes her. I was glad that Shane got to get into this relationship and just form that bond with Rose because I think he was mistaking romantic feelings with the platonic connection because we've seen through all of these years that the show has covered, Shane doesn't really spend a whole lot of time with anyone except for his parents, his teammate Hayden, and then Ilya. Ilya, they don't really talk about much. They just get straight to business, so there's not much of a friendship there. And then with his parents and his teammates, Shane has this part of his identity that he has to keep a secret. So he's kind of composed and just keeps to himself. So I feel like Rose was the first true friendship that he's had in a long time. And that's why Shane was trying so hard to hold on to it. As for Ilya, he's struggling with a lot of family issues. He eventually went back to Russia and he was there with his brother, even though they don't get along. And they were having some arguments about their dad because he's suffering from dementia. So that had a lot of emotional baggage to it, and also it created a lot of turmoil within Ilya's family, but it also helped him realize some of those feelings that he was having for Shane as well. Because Ilya starts feeling lonely in Russia, and he notices that the only person who can really cheer him up is Shane, and the only reason why he misses America is because of Shane. Ilya ends up getting very jealous when he sees Shane and Rose because, of course, two famous people will have a very public relationship. And I love this because it sent Ilya down a yearning spiral and it was perfect. We even had this scene where they were in the club and Ilya was trying to show out in front of Shane to try and make him jealous. And it kind of worked, but it also made them both more miserable in the end. So I really enjoyed that. There are also other moments where Ilya was in Boston, and I think Shane got the opportunity to come to his actual home and spend the day with him. And I think that was another step towards a more romantic relationship. Just seeing them be able to like snuggle around the house and just be chill together, I thought was very nice. And it also made them see the possibility of something more serious between them. Now, at the end of episode 5, we see that Scott's team ends up winning the championship, and this is how their storylines kind of intertwine. And everyone's celebrating and cheering from the team, and then Scott goes up to Kip and they kiss on national TV. And so it's basically his informal way of coming out. And Shane and Ilya are both with separate groups of people and they're seeing this. Everyone's shocked. And then I think it inspires Ilya to accept Shane's previous invitation to his cottage. And so now I feel like both Shane has really been pushing for these romantic vibes and trying to figure out their more serious feelings that they have for one another. Ilya's been kind of distant and avoidant by saying that what Shane's feeling isn't necessarily true, and he constantly reinforces the fact that they're both in a very public job and profession, and how queerness just isn't something that's very accepted in their field of work. So now for the finale, Shane and Ilya enjoy a private getaway in Shane's cottage. The romantic vibes are all in the air, and we even get a love confession. And Ilya is actually the one to say it first. He ends up crying about it too, but Shane's very receptive, so I thought that moment was very sweet. And all is well. The vibes are in the air. Their feelings for each other are very known and clear now at this point. But then Shane's dad ends up walking in on them kissing, and now Shane is forced to come out to his parents. Surprisingly, things go over well. Shane's parents had suspected that he was queer for a while, but they were more shocked about Shane and Ilya actually having positive feelings towards one another in general. Not even that they were romantically involved with one another, just because they liked each other. Like, were friendly. And I thought this was kind of funny, but his mom immediately starts generating business ideas. She was talking about all of the brand deals that they could get by working together and how iconic this could be. And Holinoff becomes official just in one dinner. Ilya claims himself as Shane's boyfriend, and they make things finally official after 10 years. So now I wanted to share my final thoughts. I wanted to share what I liked about the show first. I loved how the show openly displayed intimacy with a couple that was of the same gender in ways that they weren't before. Normally, around physical intimacy, TV shows can be kind of weird about that and not necessarily as open as they are with other couples. So I liked how the show was very open and it was just new and refreshing to see. I also liked how they were able to make the show more romantic towards the end. Like I said, it was very steamy at first, but they turned things around towards episodes 5 and 6. It was heartwarming, and really satisfied romantics like myself, but I still think that the show kept its original tone of before, kind of being kind of edgy and spicy. Now, for what I didn't like about the show, like I said, I kind of wrote this before I finished the series, so I don't know how true it is anymore. But the lack of storyline and all of the time skips were a little bit hard to keep up with, and it just felt like the show was all over the place. Especially for those first couple episodes, I was very confused. Like, did Shane and Ilya continuously meet up during those time jumps in between, or does the show only follow when they interact with one another? I was very confused about that part. And then something else that I couldn't help but think about was that I doubt rich and famous hockey players could be completely single for all of that time. Like, that made it a little bit hard to believe. But then after watching the show and finishing it, I feel like my opinions of that have changed. I feel like Shane and Ilya were more attached to each other than what they led on to be. So now I don't find it as hard to believe that they weren't dating all the time throughout those 10 years. And just my last thing about the show that I didn't enjoy was that I kind of preferred the more romantic side of relationships and just seeing the pursuit of love happen in movies and TV shows. So it was a little bit too spicy for what I normally like, but I enjoyed it and I felt like it was right in the scenario and how they went about it. That's all for today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Also, follow me on my other social medias at Teen TV Deep Dive Podcast for more. That's on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and TikTok. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.